Welcome. This is the Founders Atlas, a podcast exploring entrepreneurship around the world through the eyes of visionary founders. I'm your host, Mayuri Reddy. Today, we're traveling to Cairo, Egypt, a city that is one of the most fascinating histories on the planet and is home to civilizations that have risen and fallen. For me, Egypt has always been somewhere of awe and curiosity. Egypt's population stands at approximately 120 million people, with Cairo, its capital, home to around 10 million. The latest estimates I was able to find state that Cairo amounts for about 45% of the country's GDP. But Cairo isn't just a mega city with a rich history. It's a city pulsing with youth. Nearly 60% of Egypt's population is under 30. And as you may already know, in the last few decades, Egypt has been experiencing revolutions of their own. It's a place that has seen so much change, and I think we are witnessing yet another period of pivotal transition. This episode's guest is Nesma Amin, founder of Aziza, a period tracking app built specifically for Egyptian women and girls. Aziza is not just an app, it's a marker for a new era in holistic health. The tool is designed in Egyptian Arabic with real-life insights into how reproductive health is understood and misunderstood across generations of Egyptian women and girls. Aziza means dear in Arabic, and that meaning shapes the product's soul. Nesma envisions being seen beyond its utility. It's your friend, it's your auntie, it's your mom's friend. It's a presence in your daily life that helps you understand your body without shame and without stigma. Nesma's journey to founding Aziza wasn't a sudden one. She has over a decade of experience in product management and previously worked in markets like Egypt, Europe, and the US. Her insights are grounded in fieldwork and firsthand experience. So she's a true product manager. She saw how Egyptian women, especially those in lower economic brackets, were being left behind by global femtech tools. They didn't speak their language, both culturally and literally, and she saw a chance to make a change. This interview opened my eyes to how the same sector can be so starkly different around the world, even if established elsewhere. Femtech is a term that was coined in 2016 by Ida Tin, founder of Clue. And Clue is a company founded where I live, Berlin, and is widely known and used amongst my friends as one of their favorite period tracking apps. So this isn't a new industry, but it is one that, despite its huge addressable market, has not seen the investment levels I believe it deserves, or at least hasn't seen those investments going to women. Nesma is still in early stages and tackling completely different roadblocks due to the cultural differences in Egypt. Even though she has a roadmap from other femtech products, as she reminds us, building inclusively means really understanding her core customers there and not just copying and pasting what has worked elsewhere. This episode is about building for the underserved and asking, how do we build tech products that are truly inclusive? With a vision to eventually reach millions of women across the Arab world, Nesma is building a business that starts with understanding and empathy for her user base, but scales through trust. I'm so excited for you to all meet Nesma. Welcome. This is the Founders Atlas. Nesma, welcome. It's so lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, Mayuri. It's lovely to be here with you.
How did you get the name Aziza? I'm not sure if that's something that's a common name, but really curious how you came up with the name to start with.
So yeah, the name is actually very dear to me, pun intended, because Aziza means dear in Arabic. It's also a common name in Egypt and the region. But you would find a lot of older women named Aziza. It's one of my personal favorite names. And I felt like this is a nice way to also describe cycles and periods, because they're something very dear and very precious, even though we hate them almost all the time. Yet you worry so much when you don't get them. You worry so much if you have any irregularities. So you do love them in the end. So yeah, it felt like this is the type of vibe I would want to deliver with my product. I would want to give it like a local feel, a personal feel. It's something that you would call like, I'm using Aziza. You don't need to say I'm using the application. You just refer to it as a person, and then it actually becomes like a person in your life, a friend, an older aunt. So yeah, this is the backstory.
Your auntie Aziza. I love it. Yeah. I love the idea of like making it part of the family. I guess, a little bit hidden about what you're actually talking about. So somebody might actually think you're
Yes.
talking about a person when you refer to it. And what is the big problem that you're trying to solve? Like, tell me a little bit more about how the product works and maybe what differentiates it from other period tracking apps, because there are a lot on the market. There are a lot that have actually gotten quite a lot of funding as of late, but what sets Aziza apart?
So honestly, I would say that the part that I care the most about building Aziza is the inclusivity part, because yes, there are a lot of cycle trackers available. International ones are dominant, and even a lot of people in our network are using them. However, if you go to like a regular Egyptian woman in the street and ask her about cycle tracking, she doesn't even know that these tools exist, even though this woman has access to a smartphone and she's contacting her kids on WhatsApp, her friends on Facebook. However, she doesn't know about these tools, and even when she knows about them, she doesn't really feel like it's built for her. It talks about something that's completely irrelevant to her in a language that she's not very comfortable using. And not all of them are built in Arabic, and it's not just in Arabic, it's also understanding the cultural context. So that was the idea of building something that's localized, not just in the sense of using Egyptian Arabic, but also in understanding the healthcare setup and the needs of Egyptian women and girls, and how to talk about something that's really sensitive, that's a taboo, and not just in Egypt, it's all over the world, but also how much of a taboo it is here. It's all about building a product for something that's really personal in a personal way. And that's why I felt like a lot of women are missing on the opportunity to use digital health tools, not just cycle trackers, and then going to a bigger umbrella of menstrual health and how it is like a key in sexual reproductive health in general. In my head, I was just exploring, to be honest. I wanted to test it out and see how people perceive it, just because based on my work experience here in Egypt, I've seen that there is a need for it. And then later on, as you build the product and you grow it, you feel like, this actually makes sense. People are getting to use it, and they're giving you feedback, and they want other stuff to be personal. They're asking about other features. So you're building for the needs of Egyptian women and girls.
Did you previously work in the femtech or the health tech space? What made you realize that this was the problem that you wanted to solve?
Yeah, there was never a moment where I felt, I got this idea. It was brewing for a very, very long time. So my background is in tech product management. So I've been working in tech for almost 11 years now. And my experience kind of shifted after the first couple of years in working in product management to health tech. And then later on, it shifted also to femtech. So I worked on a fieldwork project where we were actually working with the healthcare providers on offering better health services for women. So it was more focused on capacity building and training and equipping the facilities in offering more safe, accessible, acceptable services. And you get to also, to be able to do that, you need to interview the women and know their expectations. What do they actually look for when they seek sexual and reproductive health services? And that was the point where I felt, oh my God, there is a lot to be done here. The healthcare setup in Egypt is very segmented, and I'm sure it is in other countries as well. The kind of services I was getting is completely different than my neighbors, completely different than any other woman. So how can we build something that's inclusive for all these women? That was the trigger for me. And I didn't want, I felt like these powerful force of women and girls is completely ignored because they're not looked at as like they don't have a high purchasing power, so they're not looked at as like target users and most of the solutions, and not necessarily healthcare. So there were a couple of products later on that were built for the mass products that got really viral in Egypt, like fintech solutions, even stock investment tools, and they were built for the mass, and they were really successful in reaching the mass. So it's still doable to reach those ignored segments. So that was the ideas in my head, that like I want to build something for the mass. I want to build something that's inclusive, and I want to try to address some of some of the problems I've seen working in the field. I worked for a couple of years, not in Egypt and in Europe. And that's where I got exposed to like building proper logic and algorithms for femtech solutions and working in diagnostics and fertility and all of that. And that really gave me a lot of insights, first of all, in how can I build a product that's focused on sexual and reproductive health. It's a very sensitive topic, and you need to be aware of
It's a sensitive topic everywhere around the world, but I would imagine
everywhere.
also I imagine there's another layer of that in Egypt as well, and a lot of unlearning that people have to have around like anything that has to do with feminine health. I feel like is something we're not even learning about until, I mean, I don't know, even for me right now, I've only started learning about what perimenopause was like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
which is insane. When you think about it, it affects half the population of the planet. So there's a huge amount of work that has to be done to re-educating the population as to the need that they actually didn't even realize they had.
100%. 100%. It's not just because of the stigma, it's because of the sensitivity of the topic. So if you talk about fertility, for example, fertility is a really personal subject.
Absolutely.
And for you to build a product that talks about that, you need to be very clear and very sensitive, but at the same time, straight to the point in building your features. But it takes a lot of experience to do that. And I felt like this is the kind of experience I got working in the European market and also in the US market, because we launched the product in Europe and in the US. And you got to see how people react differently and how different markets are reacting to the same topic. It was really interesting. And this is where I felt like the idea of Aziza started to shape during that time, because we were relying heavily on menstrual health. And going back to the base again, I felt like, okay, if we want to do like a specific solution for a niche problem, like for fertility treatments or for PCOS or for like a specific problem, you need to have the base first, the base of menstrual health, because you need to understand the cycle and you understand your body through your cycle. So this is where the idea of Aziza came.
It's like the first step that you have towards a much larger vision of how to support women through their entire holistic
different
health
stages.
journey. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. Amazing.
In the different stages, different needs. So yeah, so I think that happened over the course of 6 or 7 years. But when it became clear in my head that it's a menstrual cycle tracker, or start with the core feature of cycle tracking, everything else fell in its place. The inclusivity part, the localization part, the content part, all of that kind of made sense and linked together. So yeah, I would say it took a lot of time to come up with Aziza. Yes,
absolutely. But I mean, I think that you also approached it like a true product manager, really actually doing your research, going into the field, probably understanding the ins and outs of what the product market fit, right? So there's so many people who go into a market and have no idea what they're doing, and kind of throwing things at a dartboard. But it seems like you actually took some time to really get to understand your core customers and to create something that really may even, again, addressing a need that they might not even know they have, which is often what product building kind of requires, is reading between the lines and testing out what is really resonating. I'm really curious, you mentioned this just now about the segmentation. I think for a lot of listeners, they might not know what that really means to have this segmented health. So can you give me a little bit of context into what is the healthcare system like in Egypt, and why would your neighbor have a completely different healthcare experience than you would?
It's because of the economic differences as well. So we have a very segmented society in terms of financial and economic capabilities, and also educational knowledge. And so the educational part plays a huge part in access to information, for example, that you would see like the educated, privileged sector of the society. They have access to everything. They can access content in English on the internet, on different apps, all of that. And then you'd find someone who's not very powerful in English, or they're comfortable using Arabic, not accessing these information at all, or not knowing where to actually reach this information. So that plays a huge part in accessing digital health information. And then you also have the part of the private health sector and the public health sector. The bigger mass of the society, they use the public health services. And of course, there are a lot of initiatives going on now that are kind of working in parallel, and they're all public. Like, for example, breast cancer initiatives, cervical cancer initiatives. There are a lot of initiatives that is going on publicly, and the people who use the private health sector, they don't know anything about them. They're not benefiting from them, even though it's built for all Egyptians. You can get, for example, you can get a free test for XYZ because there is a public initiative, and they don't even know about it because it's not the information is not delivered to them.
Yeah.
They are used to paying X amount of money in accessing those services because they want a specific quality, and you just assume that this quality, you're never going to get it in the public sector. You're going to wait in lines. You're going to get exposed to a kind of treatment that you don't really want, you're not comfortable in. And part of it is actually true, because the doctors, on the other hand, in the public sector, they don't have time. They cannot give you more than 5 minutes for a consultation.
So you're not having the depth of this experience of even understanding really what's going on. So it's very impersonal and probably makes people, I mean, myself included, I don't like going to the doctor very much, to be honest. And I also don't like having an impersonal experience when you're talking about something as intimate as your health in general. So I'd imagine that to be a very challenging thing for anybody to go through.
Exactly. So it depends heavily on where you are as well. So if you're in Cairo, you're getting a completely different service than in any other governorate. And where in Cairo are you getting the service? And if it's public or private, and how much money do you pay for the service? It's very, very segmented. And you have the public, and you have the NGO health services as well, and you have the private. And even within those, you're seeing you have the primary care and you have the secondary care. Some services, you're not very clear if it falls here or there. It's a little bit chaotic. I would say
like
it's a little too much chaotic, to be honest.
So now it makes a lot more sense why Aziza is in a good place, because you're trying to create some connection for people to get that there are these opportunities for them to access better healthcare, or to at least create some connection between them so that they can be more empowered to take care of their health, right? Because I think that's a big part of when it comes to any type of health we have, or whether it's mental health, physical health. It's something that we have to be the bearers of, right? Like, we're the only ones who are going to advocate for ourselves, but oftentimes that's not something that we're taught, right? At least, I mean, again, I grew up in the US and I'm ethnically Indian. We still weren't really taught about how to advocate for our own health. I think that's a global problem that you're obviously tapping into. But I would imagine that there are different stigmas that maybe are more based in not just Cairo or Egypt or an Arab culture that you had to perhaps unlearn yourself. And actually, it was 100%. Really funny. I was speaking to a friend this last weekend. She is getting her master's in public health. And I asked her, what's it like? And she's actually a doctor as well. She's getting her MPH. And she said, honestly, like, getting your MPH is just realizing that public health is just marketing. It's just marketing. All it is figuring out how to get people to see the same problem and realize that it's something that they need to act on, right? It's, scaring them about smoking by saying, like, this is what's going to happen to your kids, or this is what's going to happen to your body, right? And really trying to teach people and teach them to unlearn some of the things they had. So I'm actually curious, kind of in that vein, what are some of the things that maybe you had to unlearn through the process of building this product? Not only the stigmas that you had, but maybe your assumptions about what the modern Egyptian woman needs, but also what are some of the things that you as a founder and a CEO, when you're talking about this product, as you're looking for customers, what are some of the things that you are helping your customers unlearn in order to get excited and to start using the product?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things, to be honest. The first thing that comes to my mind is the idea of only caring about your sexual and reproductive health after marriage. This is very common here. And this is what you hear from your aunts and grandmas, and that if you have like an irregularity in your cycle, don't worry. When you get married, everything will be fixed. The hormones will all be stable once you get married. You don't need to worry about anything that's irregular because you're still young. Once you get married, as if marriage is like the solution to everything.
Wow.
And a lot of girls are convinced with that. Like it's not something that you feel like, this is a clear myth. No, a lot of girls they actually believe that your hormones will change completely and stabilize once you get married. They even try to scientifically make sense of it. And this is something that you need to change, and you need to change it in a very smart way, because if you make fun of it, you'll be provoking a lot of people and you will not be their friend anymore. You'll not be the one that they can trust anymore. So you have to be extremely sensitive about that, because this is the only source of information they have access to. Their moms, their family, and they rely heavily on that. That's assuming that they even talk about it. So a lot of girls, they don't even talk about it. So talking about it is a huge step for them. And when they start talking with their families or the women in their families about it, and then they get this information, and then it's generationally passed on. Exactly. So this is a huge problem, and that we need to be very smart and very focused, and not to get overwhelmed with the amount of myths that are generationally passed over, specifically the marriage part. So talking about menstrual health before marriage is okay. You need to check your irregularities when you're 16 or 17 or 18 years old. That's completely fine, because it tells you something about your body, whether you're married or not. It tells you something about your body and all of that. So this is something that I feel like it's always a work in progress with us. Beyond that, I think in general is the idea of prioritizing your health. And I mean, this is not a problem in Egypt. Women in general, they do not prioritize their health. Like if she has kids, for example, and she has 100 or 50 USD, she will never buy something for herself. She will always buy something for her kids. If she will not go to this test, she would rather get her kids XYZ, even if she is financially capable. So prioritizing health in general is something that a lot of women need to learn, because it's the society that forces you. Like, we have the gender pain gap. No one takes your pain seriously. Sometimes you even think about your pain and feel like, I'm probably imagining it. It's not that bad.
I mean, both of us have a cough right now, and we're like, it's fine. So
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. My mom's been telling me to go to the doctor for like 3 days. I'm like, it's fine. But yeah, it's not even, again, it's something that I think a lot of women are taught to like be strong and fight through it, and that we're supposed to be these
100%
sources of constant resilience and health, but actually these things really start to weigh down, and we can't be there for our family, friends, partners, etc. if we aren't actually taking care of our health. And
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And this is what we're trying to do with Aziza, like one step at a time. You give her the information first on what's normal and what's not normal, because she thinks a lot of things are normal, and that's not okay. So accessing this kind of information in a personalized way. So if she reports a specific discharge, for example, or she reports a specific pain that's abnormal, and then she gets a notification from Aziza telling her, no, this is not okay. You can read this article. You can know more about it. What about you visit this? You have this service going on now. Maybe you could do a checkup. Maybe you can XYZ. So she feels like, okay, this is actually something that I should check.
What is the evolution of their adoption? So is it that they first come because they just want to start tracking their period, or do you really sell them on the full holistic understanding of their health? How do you get those first people in the door? And then also, how do you ensure that there is, again, a lot more inclusion and accessibility within that? So again, you talked about the language, but are there any other things that you do to ensure that this is as easy as possible for them to use?
Yes. So the brand, we're testing a lot. It's been a year, and we're testing with a lot of different messages. But the kind of key message that I would want to deliver with Aziza is that you don't need to track because there's something wrong. You need to track for your daily life. You need to track to be more prepared. You need to track to be hassle-free, to not worry about when you're getting your period, to be prepared, to plan your next travel, to plan your work around your cycle, to
Absolutely.
all of these simple things that every woman can relate to. And this is inclusive. So because we all have the same need, we all want to be prepared. We don't want to be surprised by our periods when we're at work or we're at university. So these are the key messages that we're delivering, or we're trying to deliver, because we still have a long way to go for our social media and branding and ads and all of that. So playing on the relatable daily situations is something that we're using. And also the idea of like, when you know your menstrual health, or when you understand your menstrual health, you understand your body, because this link is something that you need to make it very clear. The menstrual health is not just about you're getting your period and that's it. It tells you a lot about your body. And then you have the seasonal stuff. So for example, right now you have the cervical cancer awareness month is in Jan.
Okay.
So we try to customize content, like give alerts that there is like the vaccination for HPV available. No one knows about it. It's available now in Egypt. So you give alerts like these.
Yeah.
You give alerts on how, like, for example, HPV is very common now because of the skin laser treatments and sessions in Egypt.
Hold on. Can you say that again? Wait, so you can get HPV from lasering, like hair lasering?
Yes.
What?
Yes, you can. If it's not
nobody, I've never heard that before. Why does nobody tell anybody that?
Yeah.
Anywhere on your body.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yes. No, specifically on your like the genital area.
Maybe do like a Brazilian. Yeah, okay, got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it comes from contact. HPV spreads from contact, and if the laser center is not hygienic, they're not using sanitized materials, which is very common because the cheaper, like the girls, they look for cheaper options. They're younger girls, they look for cheaper options because they want to prioritize it, and they start doing their laser treatments, and then they suddenly figure out that they have the warts and it's HPV. And then you face the stigma and the taboo because people link it with sexual activity, and they're probably young girls. And then you go in a whole other direction of the stigma of premarital sex, and it's really bad. So by just saying, like, guys, have you heard about this skin thing that happens from laser treatment lately? So you kind of cut the link between HPV and sexual activity. Even if it is from sexual activity, I'm sure we don't want to make it a taboo, or we don't want to enforce the stigma, but we also want to share the knowledge. It's not just from sexual activity. And there is a vaccination, regardless of sexual activity or not. There is a vaccination. You need to take it, and if you're a mom, you need to make sure that your daughter gets the vaccination and all of that. So we try to deliver different messages, and we make it localized as much as possible.
Oh. Wow, okay, you're already teaching me a lot. So this is very interesting. So
I'm learning myself.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, again, this is what I'm saying. Like, women's health, we're not taught it. And I think that we laugh at, like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen these like TikToks where they ask men, like, how does a tampon work? Or like, how many days a month are people ovulating? And we laugh at that. But at the same time, most of the information about, how many days a month you could get pregnant, all of these sorts of things, I only found out in my 20s, like late 20s. Like, this was not information that I learned in school. I mean, in the US, we have health classes, but, it's very common that you're taught abstinence-only education when it comes to sex. You're not really taught anything separate about your bodies in terms of, you taught about puberty, but you're not taught about any of the other changes that happen throughout, not just your teens, but your entire life, like all the different phases that we go through. And so it's funny as we like try to maybe make fun of men for these things. These are things that women don't know too. And I think a lot of
100%.
people don't understand that. This is still almost a Pandora's box. Women's health is still being uncovered. And so many women don't even know about our bodies. Kind of shifting into your business, you're trying to build out this venture to really empower say there's 112 million people in Egypt or something like that, 120 million people.
Yeah,
So let's say
close to
50
100,
million.
120.
So there's 50 million plus women in Egypt, right?
Yes.
Then you go
Yes.
beyond that, of course, if you go to, the entire Arab world, you have a gigantic market of women that you can be supporting
Yes.
with this product.
Yes.
I'm curious now, you're 1 year in, but you're looking to grow your business. You're probably going into the process of getting support and investment. So
Yes.
I'm so interested, what has been your experience, not only talking about what Aziza is and the reception that comes from that, but then also the process of looking for funding. If you are looking for funding, what are the types of questions you're getting? Usually the makeup of the venture capital scene is very male dominated. What has that experience been like?
Yeah.
And how do you kind of navigate that as a woman doing it?
So it's a lot of learnings. I would say when we started, we didn't really understand what the funding scene is because we didn't worry too much about it. We were still exploring, experimenting. We didn't know. Me and my partner, we were both tech. We don't have experience in fundraising. It's the first time. The first time we start something, and we we didn't necessarily underestimate it. We just didn't know about it, and we kept it like when we need to start fundraising, we're going to learn about it because if we decide to figure out everything now, we're just not going to start.
Yeah.
So let's start with what we can do. We're going to bootstrap as much as possible, and then we're going to learn along the way. If the product makes sense, then it will make sense to users and it will also make sense to investors because it goes hand in hand. And that's not necessarily the case. That's when we learned that it doesn't really go this way. You can grow your user base, but if you don't have a business model, you're not going to be scalable. You're not going to be able to maintain this user base. You're not going to be able to build them features. You're not going to be able to retain them. So no, we need to grow and be sustainable, not necessarily grow 10x, but we need to grow.
Yeah.
And that was when we started thinking beyond just the features because it was very easy for both of us to just dive in the features and focus on the user journey and the user experience and ignore the business part. It helped us a lot that we got into accelerator program the last year.
Are there a lot of accelerator programs in Cairo?
It's growing. We weren't familiar of them, but once we get in the scene, you can spot like the big ones. So you have like, I would say 2 to 3 big accelerator programs here that most startups are aware of, have been in contact with at some point during their journey. So for example, there's Plug and Play in Egypt. We got into the accelerator program for Plug and Play, and that was a lot of learnings for me personally and for Aziza. First of all, you get to network a lot, so you get to hear a lot of feedback. It's not easy getting a lot of feedback during the first year because it's very fragmented. It's very random, and everyone has an opinion about something, and everyone gives you their opinion as if it's a fact. And it takes a lot of your effort to be able to filter what's an opinion and what's a fact, and is that a reliable opinion, and is that someone that actually understands what I'm doing. So it was really heavy navigating the first year. And we got a lot of opinions on fundraising as well. So a lot of people were questioning the business model because it's, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're building something for the mass. So there are a lot of underserved communities that they do not have purchase power. There are a lot of youth that you're covering. They do not have a purchase power. So everyone is doubting, how are you going to monetize from these users? And you tell them like, I'm not planning on monetizing from the users, but I'm sure there are ways that we can add like value added services that they already pay money for that they can access to Aziza. There are a lot of partnerships and features that we can build in partnership with an entity that has the same goal as us, and that will help us sustain. But then it wasn't enough. It's not enough for a startup. So people tend to push on, but this is more like an SME model. This is more like an NGO model. And then you start questioning, what do I want?
Yeah.
Do I want to be a startup and grow with the scale of a startup, or do I want to actually focus on the user base and the impact only and ignore the business model? So you go in a different direction than a startup. These are all questions that took a lot of our capacity. And then I would say the thing that helped me the most is still prioritizing the user growth while talking to everyone. My users are my assets.
And you've been in an accelerator in Cairo. Even though the accelerator scene isn't so massive, do you feel like it's growing? If someone were to come to Cairo and want to experience what it's like to build a business in Cairo, or, you know, they were curious about expanding their business in Egypt, what's something that they would need to know in order to be successful?
I think here you definitely need the network. The tip I would give to anyone who's starting a business in Cairo or anywhere else, that you ask people to connect you to relevant people. So in any conversation, you can just ask them, do you know anyone who can help me in that part? If you can get a contact from each contact, then you're going to meet the right person for what you're looking for, whether it's mentorship, whether it's investor, whether it's an employee, a co-founder. It's just like you're going to find what you're looking for. So it's all about building the network. And I think that's what the accelerator accelerated.
Obviously, you talked a lot about Aziza and inclusivity. That's been a huge aspect of why you started the app and what really drives what's setting it apart as well. I'm sure there's so many founders of femtech businesses that are struggling with exactly the same thing that you are, right? Maybe just in a different market or a different product that they're working on. When you look at the entire space, there have been massive investments in femtech products. One being, when we talked about it offline, Flow, which got hundreds of millions of dollars, is of course founded by men, which is a little bit, let's just say, annoying. But what is your hope for the industry, the space, and also women's part in that success and that growth?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, I love Flow. Flow is the tool that I used to use before Aziza. I think they're really successful, regardless of who is leading the company.
Yeah.
The product is successful. My partner, he's a man. He's a techie. He gets the problem. He wants to solve the problem. So men can actually have a role in femtech startups and femtech solutions, and they can care about the topic, but it's still very different than having a female co-founder or a female person in the leadership, because it's personal to us. We understand a lot of things that men would understand but not fully grasp. So building something that is personal to you, that you relate to, that you wish that people would have built it for you, still adds a very huge aspect, personal aspect to the tool. So even if I advocate for having male on board, whether co-founders, partners in the team as employees, but also having a woman in the leadership is necessary. And in the leadership of the part that is also exposed to users. So someone who's in the product team or someone who's in the marketing team, like they would know how to deliver the message. They would understand the feedback that they receive in a different way than a male person would perceive it. And you still need the male perspective as well, because menstrual health is public health. And for example, to talk about stigma, you still need to educate the male partner about
Very true.
So you need the male perspective. It's essential. But I just don't know how other companies would do all of that without having a female on board. It feels like it's not gonna reach people the same way as a woman building something for a problem that she faced or is afraid of facing. it just gets too personal. And this personal part is good and bad, but here we're talking about the good side. So
Yeah.
let's leave the bad for later.
So essentially, women need to be a part of the conversation. Women need to be a part of the
100%.
product building. They need to be a part of the marketing, but also let's not exclude men from this. Let's keep men involved.
No.
It's not like men need to be ostracized from the sector, but there needs to be an understanding that in order to build these products effectively, women need to be a part of it too and can't be excluded from it, right? So that makes total sense. I completely agree. As you're building this product, as you're trying to also navigate what type of product it's going to be, and you're also getting questions on sides of, how are you monetizing? What is it going to look like? Is it impact-based? Is it an NGO? Is it a VC case? How do you approach your idea of what success is? So what does success look like for you? If you were to define you making it, I bet, like I said, if you say making it with Aziza, what does that look like for you?
So success used to mean for me, like ticking off milestones. Like you would put, for example, you'd sit at the beginning of the year or beginning of the quarter, you put specific milestones and you just tick them off, and then looking at the results at the end of the quarter, and you feel like I did what I wanted to accomplish. This used to be success for me as a product manager because my job was very organized. But then as a founder, success, if I related to that, then I would not feel successful at all, because during the first couple of years, I would say, you pivot a lot. You can get an insight because your user base is still not that big. So if 10 users report the same problem to you and you have 1,000 users, this is a big problem that you would need to pivot a lot of things, and you would revamp your roadmap accordingly, and you would change a lot of things accordingly to make sure that these 10 users are satisfied. So it's not just ticking off things anymore. So don't get me wrong, you still need to have like the milestones and you need to tick them off, but you also need to take into consideration that you're learning and you're pivoting, and that's progress and that's success. So as long as you still have this channel of communication with your users and you know what to do to resolve the problem, then you're moving in the right direction, then you're successful. You haven't failed yet, because success is very subjective and people
Absolutely
would perceive it different. And for me, I feel like it's really hard for me to pinpoint success and celebrate it. And even if you plan for things and you achieve them, you feel like, oh, but that didn't happen the way I wanted it to. It didn't happen sooner than when I wanted it to happen. Like I would always find something that would ruin the success. So for me, as long as I'm not failing, I'm succeeding. As long as I'm moving forward, I'm succeeding at the moment. As long as my users are more satisfied, as long as I get this good feedback on WhatsApp from one user that tells me that she likes Aziza or this topic was really helpful for her, then I'm succeeding. And as long as I know what I'm doing tomorrow, then I'm moving in the right direction. I have a plan and I'm moving. I still have something to do or to test, then that's success for me, to be honest, or at least something to celebrate.
It's like one foot in front of the other, progress, step by step. As long as you're getting that, you're always successful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And now, if there is a way that somebody wants to support Aziza and maybe they don't speak Egyptian Arabic, so they can actually download and use the app. Besides downloading and using Aziza, the app, what are some other ways that listeners, maybe investors, somebody can support what you are building?
So I'm very happy to connect with anyone who sees the impact of Aziza and sees how Aziza can actually help a lot of women understand their health better, manage their day-to-day life better, to getting diagnosis of stuff that are not usually diagnosed, to being in control. So anyone who believes in this vision, I would love to have a conversation with them, because one way or another, I'm going to get insights from them. I'm going to get connections from them. I'm going to get advice. So I'm happy to connect with anyone who shares or believes the impact of Aziza. When it comes to investors, I mean, of course, I think as a founder, you're always fundraising, or you're always keeping an eye for like investors and funding opportunities. So of course, funding is not easy now in Egypt. I would say it's a tough market at the moment, but it's still doable. You have, I mean, it's better than how it used to be, so it's getting a little bit better. But if you have the right network and you have the right vision and you have the right team with you, then it's doable. So definitely open to talk to investors and funding opportunities who would see the value of Aziza. Yes.
And are you doing it at an angel stage right now or pre-seed? Like, what is the stage you're at?
So it would be a pre-seed round because we haven't raised. We're fully bootstrapped for the last year, and I think we're not really investing a lot of time in the fundraising at the moment. Right now, it's more about finding the right partners and then exploring potential funding opportunities maybe in June, where we would start our pre-seed round, hopefully.
Okay, amazing. And should I just keep if people want to reach out to you, can I put your email address in the show notes for people to reach out? Okay, cool. So just for listeners, her email address is listed below. Reach out to Nesma. And yeah, thank you so much, Nesma. This was so lovely to chat with you. And I'm really excited to see what happens next. I actually haven't been to Cairo. So when I do come, I'm hitting you up and you're going to show me everything. So it'll be great. Amazing. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for the lovely time. I mean, I loved it. The questions were amazing. And it's always lovely to talk to you, Mayuri. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you for tuning into the Founders Atlas. I hope you enjoyed the ride. To learn more about Aziza and what Nesma is building, head to our show notes. And if you like what you heard today, if you could like, subscribe, rate, or follow on whichever platform you're on, it would truly mean the world. Tune in next week as we travel to the West Bank.